Hello. So can somebody confirm if you can see my screen and you are the agenda for today's session is like a demo where I take you through the whole course as to what is in store for the upcoming days and what we will try to cover in these next 15-20 days of the course. Okay, so I am about myself. I'm Aditya. I have an implementation of experience of 3 implementations in SAP project systems and 3 implementations in SAP plant maintenance. And I have been doing project management for SAP for a major FMCG company since the last 2 years, and I've been handling projects more than $1 million. Okay, so we'll straight away jump into our presentation. Please hold on a minute. Okay. Okay, so before we speak about the project management, I would like you to understand what exactly is a project. So let us first understand what is a project, then we'll move on to what is project management, and then we'll move on quickly to what essentially does SAP project management take us to. So a project per se itself is a temporary endeavor taken to create a unique product, service, or a result. So a project is temporary. Why? Because it has a defined beginning and a defined end, and therefore it has a defined scope and resources. Okay, and why do we say a project is a unique? Because it's not a unique operation. You take this project to do a specific set of operations designed to accomplish a particular goal. So you have a goal in mind, and you do all the activities related to that particular goal in the direction of the particular goal. So the project team would often include people from diverse backgrounds from different departments all across the company, and they are broken down into different parts, and they come together to achieve a common goal. So, like for example, the development of a software for improving a business process, or for the construction of, in the simple terms, could be a construction of a bridge or a building. Example. So, if you take an example for daily life, it could be a relief effort for after a natural disaster has taken place. So these are all the part of the projects. So, and this has to be expertly managed to deliver on time, on budget, and it should benefit the entire organization per se on a broader level. So this takes us to project management. What is then project management? Project management is then the application of knowledge, the skills, the tools, and the techniques to do these project activities to achieve our project goal in time and in budget. So this is what encompasses project management. So primarily a normal project would be broken down into phases for us to achieve the common goal. So these phases would be: first you will initiate the project, then there will be the planning phase, and then there will be the executing phase, and then you monitor the project after you have executed it and control various aspects, whether the manpower or the cost, or and then this at the end is the closing phase. Speaking about phases, SAP project management itself is broken down into phases. So SAP project management, we follow a methodology of ASAP methodology. I'll tell you a brief about ASAP methodology, then we'll move on to the phases of the SAP ASAP methodology. ASAP, the full form would be Accelerated SAP. So ASAP methodology is the SAP roadmap for implementation, enhancements, and upgrades for SAP solutions. So whenever you do an SAP implementation, so it might be a new solution, a new implementation, end-to-end implementation, or there can be rollouts, or there can be merely upgrades to the existing solution. So this ASAP methodology supports cost-effective and speedy implementations of the SAP solution in the customer environment. So it brings with itself a proven, comprehensive, repeatable, and a rich implementation methodology to streamline the projects and lets us achieve a total cost of implementation. So very less cost of with very less cost of implementation, because we have set guidelines, we know what to do, there are standards everywhere. So it brings with itself an experience, a plethora of experience, and it has all the guides and templates and all other resources that enable us to successfully implement our SAP project. Why ASAP methodology? What are the benefits that allow us to use the ASAP methodology, and is been extensively used for all the projects since the beginning? So there was ASAP 1, ASAP 2, ASAP 7, and now we have ASAP 8 methodology. So the benefits of ASAP methodology is why do we use it? Because it delivers transparent, proven approach, helping the project team to basically reduce the implementation time, its cost and risks through this efficient implementation process. Right, so it's an efficient and easy project delivery process, and in turn, it helps us to achieve better results by leveraging the experience of other successful implementations which have already happened by using this methodology. And the SAP methodology also leverages SAP's vast experience in its implementations and upgrades and various other operation solutions that it had implemented earlier. And the best part of it is scalable because it can be tailored according to the customer's needs and according to the project requirements. And it also supports different types of projects, like for a single cycle project, a multi-site project, a global rollout, a regional rollout. If you want to develop a prototype, if you want to evaluate a certain solution that's already in place. So it's scalable. So it has solutions, it has templates that guides for each of its different type of projects. So these are the benefits that we see, and then when we proceed ahead with this particular style of methodology while implementing SAP project management. So I was speaking about phases in project management. What exactly are the phases for ASAP 8 methodology, and what are the phases that we follow in ASAP 8? Hold on, I think I got a message. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, give me a second, please. This is chat window. Okay, great. So no problem. So yeah, I will continue. So I was speaking about the phases that are there in ASAP methodology. So these these 6 phases broadly classify the different phases in ASAP 8 methodology. And during the course of this particular training session, not this, I would say during the whole tenure of this 15-20 days where we'll be taught about the project methodology. So these are the phases that will go inside. So each phase is broken down into sub phases, just like a project where you have individual work breakdown structures, and each work breakdown structure would have its own tasks. So we'll go into one by one. So this session, I'll just introduce you to all the phases. And in the subsequent session, as you could also see in our syllabus, so we have broken down each phase into sub phases, and we'll go into one by one in detail as to what are the deliverables in each phase, what are the milestones that needs to be assigned in achieved in each phase, and how do you go to the next stage. So all these things would come eventually. So from a broader perspective, each phase, the SAP 8 methodology is broken down into 6 phases. The first one being the project preparation phase, the second, then we move on to the business blueprinting, then comes the realization, the final preparation, go live support, and then you operate on the environment that you have gone live with. So giving a detail about each of the phase, we'll first refer to the project preparation phase. So the project preparation phase, this is the phase where the team goes through the initial planning and preparation for the SAP project. So here the phase provides the initial planning and preparation for the. So each of the project has its own set of objectives, has its own set of scope and priorities. So the deliverables for this phase are outlined in completing the initiation and planning steps in an efficient and effective manner. So it is where you draft the project charter. So there are different templates in this phase where you draft the project charter, where you set the standards, where you set the communication plan, you identify the stakeholders, you identify who you identify the stakeholders in terms of you develop the RACI charts. So who is the responsible person, who is accountable for each process. So the business process wise also you divide the members as to who is responsible for what business process, what if something goes wrong, who is accountable to it, who are you reporting to. So these are the different phases that this is in this phase that we have an initial alignment of the scope of the project, initial alignment for the scope of the project, where you do the scoping and planning for the project. Then you move on to the next phase, which is the business blueprinting phase. So business blueprinting phase, the purpose of this business blueprinting phase is to achieve the common understanding of how the company intends to run in the SAP environment. So it is during this phase that you speak to the different people in the organization. You speak to different process heads and ask them what do you intend, how do you intend your company to run in the SAP environment, and how do you intend to support, how do you intend that SAP supports the business. So what would you like for SAP to look like? So you have a standard SAP solution in place, but you would want it to function in a certain way. So what exactly are you looking for in SAP? What are the advantage? What are the key benefits that you are looking for into SAP? So that you take in the client requirements, you gather this requirement, then draft it in a business blueprint and get it signed by all the stakeholders. So each phase, as I said, is broken down into its deliverables and milestones that can be achieved. So these deliverables are defined. We have a templates in place. We have various accelerators also. We'll get into what accelerators are. So we have accelerators and we have milestones also. So when you're speaking about project, you would also be, there would be different vendors involved in this project. You would want to invoice them. So these invoices and these billings are based on certain milestones you achieve in different phases. So what are these milestones? So each phase is also having different milestones which you need to achieve to move on to the next stage. So in this ASAP methodology, the result of a business blueprint is, so finally what do you get of a business blueprinting document? It's a detailed documentations of results gathered during the requirement analysis phase. So you go speak to the 10 number of people, and then you know what is the requirement, what does the business actually want from SAP, why is it implementing SAP. So you have a business blueprint document. That means you know what you need to build. So that is called the baseline build document in SAP. So once you have the baseline build, you know what the business requires, and then you go ahead and draft what you would go and implement. And this draft is prepared is called the to be process. So business blueprinting is as is process, which is already there in the system, and then you gather requirements from this from the business saying how do you require the system to be. So that is called the to be process, which is then implemented in the realization phase, which comes after the business blueprinting phase. So the purpose of realization phase is to implement all the business process requirements that have been gathered during the business blueprinting phase, and then you go ahead and configure the system with the requirements that you have gathered. So the objective of the realization phase is to establish the solution landscape where you're implementing, where you're configuring everything, then implementing the final solution in the development environment. So we should remember that SAP implementation doesn't directly go into production. So SAP implementation is broken down into three phases. First is the development environment, where you configure the system, where you do a unit testing, that is you test your solution. So SAP is broken down into different modules. There is a production planning module. There is, sorry, there's a production planning module, there is a material management module, the quality management module, and each module is handled by different teams. So in the realization phase, each team configures its own solution, and then they test it. They test their own solution at in a silos perspective. Once they have tested it in their own, once each has tested their own solution, then after the realization phase, they move it from the development environment. So all this testing is done in the development environment. Then from the developing environment, it is moved to the testing environment, which is called the quality environment in some places, and also regression environment. So depending upon the size of the organization, your environment will change. So it's development, quality, regression, and then the production environment. If you want a thorough testing, you also do the regression testing also. I have a message from somebody who says he can't hear me. So can somebody reply whether you can hear me or not? Just check. I can't hear you, Phil Slim. So Phil, would you rather check your mic or headphones, please? So we'll move ahead. We'll see whether Sandeep, can you take care whether Phil is able to hear or not? Okay, probably we'll continue. We'll disconnect and join back again. Okay, great. So as I was speaking, so there are different landscapes. When I say different landscapes, that means different box in which you do your configuration, and then you move this configuration from one environment to the other, so that you have thoroughly tested the solution that is in place, and then you don't want any defects to go into the production system, because production system is the environment where you actually do the day in day out transactions. So you wouldn't want that to be affected by any defects, any open defects that are there. So you do thorough testing in 2-3 environments. That is from the development environment, where you do a silo testing of your own module. Then you move on to the quality environment, where you do an integration testing, where all the teams sit together and test the solution from an integration perspective. So SAP itself is a tightly integrated solution with interacting with each module, interacting with each other in different integration phases. So you would want to test the integration aspect of the SAP also. So it is where all the team sits and tests the integration. Then you do a regression testing. So regression testing is not mandatory, but it depends upon the size of your organization. If you are a part of a big organization, you would want to do a regression testing also. So post regression testing, when everything is successful, you have received the sign-offs, you move ahead and then move the changes to production environment. Speaking of which, it's the realization phase where you actually start the journey of configuring the system. This is the first time where you touch the system and configure the requirements that you have gathered from the business in the business blueprinting phase. So, and it is in the realization phase that you develop the testing approach as to what testing you would do, what is the testing scope, you develop testing documents, you also deliver the training material during the realization phase. And since you are speaking about the organization which is using a legacy system, you would also want to migrate the data that the company is working on previously. So you develop a data migration strategy and what data you want to archive which has been obsolete, and you would want the data to archive the data to identify what part of it you want to migrate and what part of it you want to archive. Then there is the performance testing guidelines that are laid down in the realization phase. So once you are thorough with this phase, once you have the deliverables in place, once you have achieved the milestones, you move on to the final preparation phase. So the purpose of the final preparation phase is to complete all the final preparations for you to go live. So this final, when I say final preparations, this would include the testing, the end user training, whatever training is required to the end users, and the system management. Every technical aspect of the system has to be managed, and there are cutover activities also. So when I'm sorry. So when you move to the production environments, you would want everything to be perfect. You don't want to adversely impact the system. So you will see all the transports that are there. So when I say transports, any change from one environment to the other in SAP is moved through transport request. So you develop a transport request, then you move from one environment to the other. So you will see that the transports are released or not, whether they are in correct status, and if there is an impact between conflicting transports or not, whether the sequencing is right. So all these activities are managed under the cutover activities. We'll eventually know in detail what cutover activities are, what test management has to do, how are the end users training pass, what is the data migration strategy when we go into deep dive into each of these phases. So during the final preparation phase also serves us, like also helps us to resolve all the open critical issues. So on successful completion of the phase, you are ready to run your business on SAP. So once you have successfully completed the final preparation phase, you go ahead and you are fully ready to run your system, your business in the SAP system. So after the final preparation phase, when you are ready, then you also, in the main aspect of this final preparation phase is you also make a go no go decision. So you have come to the point in the project where your timeline has reached the penultimate, and you have to make a decision whether you are in the right position to go ahead with the project, or you're still not able to achieve the milestones that you intended to. And is there a go or a no go? So the final business approval from the project sponsors, from all the relevant stakeholders, from the leadership team is required, whether you want to have a go or a no go for the project. So once there is a go, then there is no stopping, and then you go live with the production, you go live with the system, and you start using the system. So when you say go live, that means you have started using SAP for your business. You have migrated to this new system, that is the go live system. So this is the phase where you move from a project oriented environment to a production environment. So you have moved from a pre-production to a production environment, and you're live and you're using the SAP system for your day in day out transaction. And eventually, as you use it, so there will be a support team also in place. So since you have just gone live, and there are critical business functions that need to be performed, so there is also a support team. So there's a hypercare period, which you say that's the intensive care period for, like, depending upon the contract that you have with the vendor. So this is like 2 or 3 weeks of hypercare period where where once you've started using, so there will be slight issues regarding the security aspect or regarding certain aspects regarding the understanding the user has. So because till now he has been testing in the test environment, now once it comes to a production environment there will be certain challenges, so that's very much evident, and you cannot avoid those. So there is a hypercare period that is there to take care of these kind of addresses that come after you have gone live. So these are very minor issues, basically due to the understanding of the users to use a production environment. So you try to resolve these issues, so you have 1 month for that. So this is the ongoing support that happens, and depending upon the contract, the support can be extended to, like, not the hypercare period per se, but the support for SAP production environment can extend up to, it can be contracted, it can be built in-house as per the organization structure. And then our primary goal was to run SAP and operate in this environment. And this culminates, this is where the project team is dissolved once SAP is run successfully and it's handed over to the project team. All the KT is transferred to the support team. This is where our project ends, and then the project team is dissolved. So this is on the whole the different phases that are there in project management in SAP. So each phase is defined by its own purpose, each phase has its own set of deliverables, and each phase has its own set of milestones. So as I say, each set of deliverables, so during each phase has a set of deliverables that are produced during the duration of the project and during each phase, and these serve as inputs to the next phase. So you cannot move on to the next phase until and unless you have completed the deliverables from the previous phase. And to assist you to complete the deliverables, there are different types of accelerators and tasks. So this is how your project structure would look like. This is standard SAP 8 methodology, and this is how it would look like. So you have these are the different phases, as you could see, like the project preparation phase, the business blueprinting phase, and the realization phase, and each phase is broken down into sub phases. Like you initiate the phase, what are the checkstones, what are the milestones that you need to achieve in during that sub phase, what are the checkpoints for the deliverables, and each phase itself is broken into sub phases, and then it has a description of what exactly is required in that sub phase. Then these sub phases have a set of deliverables which are called tasks. So you need to execute the task. Who is accountable to the task? The accountability is also there as to who is responsible for the task and who has to be done and to whom it has to be reported. And to help us achieve the deliverables, we have accelerators. Accelerators are nothing but templates and guides that help you to achieve that particular deliverables. So during the course of this project, when we drill down and we go deep down into each of these phases, so we'll look into the accelerators, we'll see the templates. This particular training would also provide you with the templates that are required. So each phase would have critical templates. So these templates would help you do your project management more efficiently, and you will have standard templates provided by SAP to with you to be handy. So this is how it looks like. So I request everyone to confirm whether till now it is okay, because these phases are very important for our training approach, and these phases are the one which we would be working eventually during the course of our lecture. So can people please confirm on chat window at least whether till now it is okay and everybody could understand what the phases are and what is required, what are deliverables and what are the milestones and what are accelerators. So I'm actually waiting for the message. Okay, great. Ramna Kola is good. Okay, great. So yeah, so I would also request for a feedback as to, like, you would want me to go slow or the pace is good, or we can go as we are going right now. Is there any question that you would want to ask? Okay, we'll just close the window. Give me a moment, please. Okay, still now we spoke about phases. So during each of these phases, for all the phases, like for the project preparation phase, the blueprinting phase, and the final preparation phase, and operate, go live support. So all these phases, there are multiple teams that are involved. I'm not speaking about the SAP aspect of these teams, but from the organizational aspect, from the admin aspect of these teams. So these teams are, so the SAP ASAP methodology phases are structured around key project work streams. So these are the work streams, that is the different set of teams that would be working to make our project successful. So the deliverables also are broken down into these work streams. So there is a project management team. So our training would primarily focus on the project management, but we'll briefly touch upon each phase and each team, what other teams are also doing. So there's a project management phase who is responsible, like in a way, this is managing the whole project. This is you and me. The only reason that you are taking up this project because you are going to be a project manager of a project. So this project management work stream is the work stream that you would be working into. Then there is the organizational change management who takes care of any changes. So the changes are going to the system, right? So these changes are taken care by an organizational change manager. He would say what are the methodologies you follow to do a change management. So what are the documents that need to be submitted? What are the evidence that need to be submitted? So what are the test cases that you need to execute for us to approve the changes to move to the production environment? So this change management is handled by the organization change management team or organization change management work stream. So then there's a training work stream also. There are a set of people. So these, I wouldn't say there are different teams, but there are common people. And this basically the methodology is broken down into work streams. So these are the work streams that are there. These work streams can have common people or different people also. So there is a team for the training also, for the training aspect of the users also. So they are entirely moving to the new system. So they would want the users to be trained to the new system. So the training aspect is taken by the training work stream. Then as we're speaking about the data migration and data archiving work stream, what data needs to be migrated, from what date you would want to migrate the data to the new system, and what date you would want to archive the data. So like for example, if you're speaking about the material management module, so these material management module has materials in it. So there are material codes. So your system eventually, once the material codes are developed over a period of time, like for say 10 years, if your organization is there, so there would be material codes which were developed way back before 10 years, 9 years. You would want to make them obsolete. It's not required going ahead. So you have decommissioned that machine. So you don't want that spare parts to be there. So that's all junk data that's there in the system. So you would want to archive that. That strategy as to from what date you would want to take the invoices, what date you would want to take the open invoices, whether you want to take the closed invoices also, all this strategy, all this data migration activity, archiving, the strategy is defined by these two work streams. Then comes the value management part. Value management part is the SAP, when I say, has different modules, and each different module has its own set of benefits, its own set of different sub-processes also. So it's not necessary that you implement all the sub-processes in your system. So it's only it only matters for you to implement only the process that you require. Like for example, in SAP plant maintenance, so I will be referring to project systems and plant maintenance and material management modules for you to understand, because I have experience more in plant maintenance. So for in plant maintenance, you have the basic standard corrective maintenance or corrective maintenance process, the preventive maintenance process, the breakdown process, and there are advanced modules like the work clearance management, the linear reference pattern, the linear function locations. Okay, great. So sorry, we'll continue from where we left. Okay, speaking of phases, so then there's the value management phase. So whether that particular sub-process has value to the organization, what is the value addition that the sub-process has to your particular organization. So you evaluate it, you will go ahead and see whether I need to implement that or not, whether there's a cost benefit. So we'll do a cost benefit analysis of that particular sub-process. So do we require that sub-process or it's not required for organization? That is what is done by the value management work stream. Then there's a business process management team. So each company would have its own business process. There's a stores department, there's a maintenance department. So each business process and each end-to-end process, like the material to inventory, stock to transfer posting, every business process is broken down, and then you define a phase for each process. So you take care of whether the business process are correctly mapped in your system or not. So all these things are taken by the business process management work stream. Then the technical solution team, this technical solution team takes care of setting up your different servers, the development server, the quality server, and the production environment. So this is part of the basis team. So this is what is taken care by the technical solution management team. Similarly, for the application lifecycle management team, so you would have the legacy systems in place which you are currently using. It might be an Excel, or it might be Chrono system, or it might be any other system or SCADA system that you're using. So you would want also to map those systems into your current SAP landscape. So how do you do that? This is taken care by the application lifecycle management team. Then the test management team who takes care of the testing guidelines. What are the test cases that need to be updated? What are the evidences that need to be attached? How do you move on to the next phase? What are the testing that needs to be done? So is it the unit testing that needs to be done? Is it the integration testing that has to be done? Is it the user acceptance testing that need to be done? Don't get bogged down by these terms. We'll eventually come towards what each means and how you do each particular kind of testing. Then there's a cutover management team. This is a critical team when we say cutover management, because this takes care of your transports, how the transport requests are moved, which modules transport requests are moved, because as SAP is tightly integrated. So first, generally, it's you create a company, then you create a company code. So this company code has to be moved ahead first. So this is a financial transaction. So once the company code is moved, then and the GLs are moved and the cost centers are moved, then you eventually move the other modules transport requests, then you move the which where the plants are moved, and depending upon these plant codes, your maintenance plants are created in SAP PM. So you move the FI, you move the then you move the plant maintenance. So there's a sequence that needs to be followed. This sequence is taken care by the cutover management team. So this is what these work streams help us. So, and each work stream, like I said, so these deliverables that I said for each phases. So as you could see, this is an example that I've put here. So for the project preparation phase, as I said, is this phase itself is broken down into these work streams, and each work streams, the deliverables are there. So these deliverables are with respect to each work stream. So since we are the project managers for our projects, we will be looking at the project management work stream deliverables thoroughly. And for other work streams, we'll just touch upon what the deliverable is so that we know, because since we are the project managers, we should understand each phase properly and actually what is happening in each phase. So we should have an understanding of that as well. So I'll briefly touch upon each other phases deliverables also, just so you understand what is required from other work streams also, so that you can manage them properly. So this slide is very important. You will see more of these slides for different phases also, where you have a set of deliverables broken down into different work streams, and this basically assigns the area of accountability. So these deliverables that you see, the project initiation deliverable, all these deliverables are accountable to the project manager, and these organization change management roadmap, the training, these respectively are assigned to different teams altogether. So this is the basic concept of work stream and SAP 8 methodology work stream. So as I was mentioning about different accelerators that help us achieve the deliverables, as you can see, this is the sample project startup checklist. So this is one of the accelerator that has been provided for us. So one deliverable during the project initiation phase or the project preparation phase is to have a understanding, is to kickstart our project. And in order to kickstart our project, so there's a kickoff template that has to be assigned, that has to be filled. So for that kickoff template, this is the sample project checkoff list that has to be there, that has to be duly filled by the project manager. So this project startup list is a good way to ensure that the startup tasks are completed prior to actually starting the project. So this helps us kickstart our project. And as you could see, it is broken down into the organizational, like the planning and the organization that you have set up the team. The planning has been done. There is a tracking and monitoring mechanism in place. There are a set of people who are reviewing it. There's a change control configuration management team. There's a risk management document that has been created. There's an issue management tracker that has been created, and the quality assurance part is also taken care of. So this is a brief checklist. So this is an example of what accelerators are. They help us to kickstart our project as this is the phase. And in different phases, there are different accelerators for each deliverable. So these checklists can be developed and then be used by others to ensure that necessary tasks have been completed and we are in line with what is required, right? So this is the checklist, and then moving ahead. So once the checklist is complete, so this isn't just an example. So now we'll move on to what the project organization looks like. So as you could see the project, this is an example project organization. This, your project organization would also be in the similar lines, and it will be in similar aspects. So as you could see at the center, there is the project manager, there is you, there is me, who is the project manager, who will be handling the project. So he's at the center, he's managing everything, right from the quality management team, the PMO team, and then the business process owners, everybody. This project manager acts as a liaison between all the teams, and he's directly reporting to the project sponsor and the project committee. So when I say project manager, the project manager is responsible for the overall management of the standard implementation and industry solution projects throughout its life cycle, right from the thought of implementing a project to the culmination till the project team is dissolved. Project manager is the last person who is dissolved from the project. So the project manager is the center point of contact. So what are the different tasks of the project manager? The project manager participates in the project right from the starting. As I said, he participates in the project planning activities and manages the execution as per the plan. So in the planning phase, there are certain things planned, and he's the one who manages the execution of that plan. He monitors the timelines. So he's the one who is managing relationship between, when I said licensing between different teams. So he's the project manager, the person who is responsible to manage relationship between the project stakeholders, the internal and the external clients, keeping everybody informed as to the progress of the projects, any issues that are there, managing these issues, and mapping them to your project requirements and deliverables. He is the one who will define a clear and who will define and manage a communication plan. So he'll set a clear vision to the project. He'll set a clear vision to the project objectives, and he's the one who will motivate the team to achieve them. So he'll create an environment, he will create a project environment where this will trigger everyone to perform to their peak. So this is like the people, this is where your people management skills come into picture. So you should be able to motivate the team also to give their best for the project. So he's the one who constantly motivates, and he's there for everyone. So he's the one who is proactively identifying the changes if any during in the work scope. So you have set that what is required in your business blueprinting document, and this is what you're configuring. But it's not ideal. So in an ideal world, you don't exactly configure what has been defined. So there will eventually be changes in the system, because its system is always dynamic. This business is dynamic. They would identify that they had missed something, or a new business has come up. So they would also want to add that. So how do you manage that change? How do you manage that client? So this is where your client management comes into picture. So you just speak to the client. So if this this is a very important concept. This is what is asked in an interview as well. How do you do that conflict management? So the question is, if there's a conflict, what do you do? So here you need to identify that client. You should first, the project manager is the one who first interacts with the client. He understands the change. Then he identifies whether this change is impacting in a big way or not. So he'll understand whether a lot of work around is required to inculcate the change in my current process. If there's a lot of work involved, then there's a change management process that is there. You take a change request, then accordingly you will build that change also, because it was not in your initial scope. So that's why it was not part of your billing as well. So you take a change request, then you will add additional budget to your project also because of that. So this is one aspect. What if you don't want to build a client? So if you want to maintain a long-term relationship with the client, what do you do then? You just can't build the client for small changes. So this is where you manage your team. Your team wouldn't want to do something extra that has been out of the scope. This is where your people management skills come to picture. You have to manage the client. You have to manage your own people as well. So this is where the project managers has to hone various number of hats, right? From the planning hat, scheduling hat, the people management hat. So project manager is the person for the project. So he's the one who is handling the financial aspects. He's the one who is budgeting and estimating the cost. He's the one who is posting the actuals on a month-on-month basis. He's the one who is analyzing various kinds of risks, establishing the contingency plans around this risk, and identify the trigger events which are actually triggering these risks to happen, which are actually triggering the issues that are coming up. So he's the person who would constitute, like, who is the person who's consolidate all the risks at one place. So since we are speaking about different modules, so there'll be different risks and issues of different modules. He's the one who will be consolidating that and speaking to the relevant stakeholders, gathering all the stakeholders and getting them to a constant consensus. And then he's the one who has to ensure that a proper project methodology is followed, the standards are followed, the right tools are used, the right processes are used, and the right procedures are used. So he's the one who would get sign-offs from the business team, who would provide sign-offs to, and he's the one who's reporting. So the main aspect is he's reporting to the steering committee and the project sponsor. So we'll get into what the steering committee is and what the project sponsor are. And finally, he's the one who is responsible to maintain a work-life balance within the team. So this is just a few of the things that a project manager is responsible for. When we get into our phase by phase training, we'll understand what exactly does a project manager do in each phase. So, and he's also responsible for appraising his team members. So every rating of his team members is in his hands. So he has that power as well. So then we have a PMO team. So the PMO team comprises of the value management team and the quality management team. So as I said, so the PMO team, the project management office, is responsible for the professionally, like, operating the project. So they take care of the admin aspects, like the coordinating the travel arrangements for the team, booking meeting rooms wherever possible, booking the venues for the teams, arranging meetings and coordinating with different teams, dealing with, like, basically the admin part of it. The expenses are submitted there, and all the activities are performed. Then when we speak about the organizational change manager, he's the one who basically provides primarily strategic advice and a direction towards how the changes are managed arising from the different aspects of the project organization. He is the one who would identify, like, the potential risks, create plans to mitigate the risk, and execute the plans. So he's the one who structures the team around the change management process. And then when we come to the steering committee, so depending upon the size of your project and the size and its functions, so there are different other people also involved in the project phase. So the project sponsor. So who is the project sponsor? Basically, the project sponsor acts as a vocal and a visible champion. So he's the person who defines the project goals. So he's the stakeholders whose consensus or whose sign off is required while defining the project goals and objectives. He's the one who keeps abreast with the major project activities, and he's the decision maker of the project. He's the one who generally chairs the steering committee for all the projects, or for small scale projects. So in the steering committee, he's the chairperson. The project sponsor is the chairperson who is steering the steering committee. So his task would involve, like, he's the one who is providing us the resources from the business side. So he's from the business customer client side. The project sponsor is generally from the client side. He's basically the business head or the IT head of the particular organization. So whatever resources, whatever things we would require from the business, the project manager directly interacts with the project sponsor. So he's the one who is helping around with the resources or resolving the issues, getting us aligned with the right stakeholders, getting us aligned with the right business process users, so that we understand the requirements. He acts as a liaison between the business and the project team. So he's the one who is approving the strategies, the implementation plan, and he's the one who is approving the project scope and milestones. So we align the milestones together with him, and then that is what is documented. So he's the project sponsor is the one who is driving the changes across the organization. He's prioritizing the project goals and what are the ongoing project costs. He's the one who is approving those costs. So everything related from the client side is managed by the project sponsor. Then it's the steering committee. So depending upon how the project is organized, the steering committee is also, like, this is a group of people. They are the decision makers of the project. So every depending upon the size of the project, every fortnightly or every monthly, the steering committee sits. They discuss the overall status of the project, the overall health of the project is tracked. So what is required, whether everything is in the right place or not, what are the impact to the different departments. So they bring with them the business perspective of the project. How is the project impacting their business process, whether the users are involved in the project or not. So any grievances that you have from the business team, you can bring it up in the project steering committee meeting, and then this can be highlighted and resolved there. So this is a brief overview of the three important functions, that is the steering committee, project sponsor, and project manager. So we'll get into sub functions also and sub roles also as we go through our course. And then I was mentioning about a communication plan that the project manager sponsors. So this is a sample communication plan that the project manager can develop. So it lays down the guidelines as to the frequency of the meetings. I was mentioning of the steering committee meeting, the project meeting, so regular project meeting, the module-wise meeting. So he sets the frequency of it. So what are the contents that need to be discussed in the meeting? Who are the participants of the meeting? Whom does the meeting invite has to be sent? So all that is taken care in the communication plan. So this, I would say, this demo, I would say, just gives you a brief high-level overview of what is there in store subsequently during this course. This is just an example communication plan. This is just an example of organization structure. This is just an example of tasks that need to be performed and the deliverables. So it's very extensive. So as I was mentioning, give me a second. So I'll go back to this slide. So how our course is structured is, let me open up that document. Give me a moment, please. Okay, so as you could see, our course is structured around different phases. So each phase is broken down to sub phases. So during each sub phase, we'll see what deliverables are there, what are the milestones that are achieved. So it's very meticulously broken down. It's very meticulously structured in a way that you would have the right tools, you would have the right skills, you would have the right template and guide to go through each phase. You know whom to manage, what to manage, and you have the right tools at your hand. So it's very difficult. So if in all the courses that you see online or the different courses, you are not provided the tools. You are provided the brief concepts as to what is required, but the tools are not there. You go around searching the tools here and there. So this course over here provides you with the right tools also. You will be given the templates that are required during each phase. There are deliverables that are to be achieved during these phases. There are milestones, so you will be well aware, and this course will also help you achieve the standard certification of SAP Project Manager. So this course is structured around that. So once you have completed the course, you will be in a position to successfully complete the SAP Standard Project Management Certification, that is the Associate Project Manager Certification that is in place. So if you could compare the syllabus of both, so it is in the same lines. All the things that are covered in the SAP Project Manager course certification are covered here. So you would be in a place, and at the end of the course, I'll also introduce you to SAP Activate methodology. So with the S4 HANA coming up, there is this Activate methodology that has come up. So eventually, over a period of few years, I wouldn't say now because it's just new and it's just come up. So it takes time for the people to adopt. So this Activate methodology would also come up, and people will be shifting to Activate methodology. This is in similar lines with our ASAP methodology also. So I'll give you a brief overview of what is in store for the future. Going back to our presentation. So yeah, so moving ahead, so this is the escalation matrix of how an escalation of the reporting is structured around your project. So as you could see, the project manager is at the center, and everybody reports to the project manager, and he is accountable to the steering committee and the project sponsor. So this is just an example. This is just a queue which you could like use to implement similar kind of structure in your organization as well. Then what does the project successful really mean? So the main point lingering around from a long time is, why are we implementing the project? So what are the business benefits that we achieved? What are the functional goals that we are going to achieve with this particular project? What are the project goals? What are the schedule compliances? What are the budget compliances? Everybody boils down to one particular thing, that is what business goals that we are going to achieve by successfully implementing this project. This should be in mind. So the question that you need to ask is, what are the business goals that I'm going to achieve? What are the cost benefit analysis that I have done? So am I in the right place? Am I implementing the right solution? Am I implementing the right solution with the right resources in the right time? So all these questions come up with you, and this project management course would help you answer these kind of questions and would give you the right tools, and it would give you the right fire under your wings to successfully implement your project and successfully manage your project. So this probably culminates my presentation. So any questions till now? So anybody would want to ask me something? Does anybody has